Meeting is now being streamed live and TV30 will count you in.
TV30 here. We are ready to count you in. It's 7 p.m. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
All right. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue.
Okay, welcome everyone to tonight's virtual regular meeting at 7 p.m. of the Livermore City Council, March 14th, 2022. Call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling.
Here.
Councilmember Kick. Here. Councilmember Monroe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance now? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ask the city attorney if give any report out from the closed session.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is your City Attorney Jason Alcala. No, the City Council did not take any reportable action in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, City Clerk, would you like to make an announcement about the availability of Spanish?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Tonight's meeting will include the availability of Spanish interpretation over Zoom. All participants will see an interpretation button, which looks like a globe on the toolbar at the bottom of their Zoom screen and should select either English or Spanish. Please do not leave the selection on the default setting as this will impact your ability to hear the meeting. Please note that the city is unable to see if members of the community are utilizing the Spanish interpretation channel. Therefore, you may notice pauses during the meeting as we give individuals who may want to provide comments using the interpreter some additional time. Any participants using the interpreter to submit a public comment will be given double the allocated time to submit their comments for a total of 6 minutes. If you experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, please email cityclerk@cityoflivermore.net. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person per item. Members of the public can participate by using the raise hand feature or *9 if calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens for each item to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand at the beginning of each item. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin upon being unmuted. Residents using interpretation services will be provided 6 minutes to submit their comments. Please note, a speaker is not required to answer any questions from the City Council, and the City Council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address a speaker's comments when a council member believes it is relevant to a particular business item. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to reorder the agenda because item 6.1 has to start at 7:05 p.m. We're a minute or so early, so we will wait until 7:05. And City Clerk, could you let me know when it's 7:05 and we'll start 6.1.
Yes, Mayor.
You're in a break.
That's what I mean. That's why I don't get this trip back, right? So
Mayor and council members, this is your city clerk. The time is 7:05.
Okay, thank you. We'll now start with item 6.1. It's our fourth public hearing to receive public input on the composition of the city council voting district draft maps, to select a final map, provide any final direction to the city's demographer, and instruct staff to return with an ordinance to adopt the final map at a future city council meeting. Can we have the staff consultant presentation now, please?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is your city clerk, Marie Weber. The California Elections Code requires that every 10 years, city with by-district election systems use new census data to review and, if needed, redraw district lines to reflect how local populations have changed. The city of Livermore has district-based elections for 4 council members and therefore is required to update the district boundaries prior to the November 8th, 2022 election. To complete this process, the City Council held 2 public hearings on October 11th of 2021 and January 24th of this year, educating residents on the redistricting process and inviting them to submit maps and communities of interest prior to maps being drawn. A workshop was held on October 18th, showing residents how to use the electronic mapping tools and highlighting the paper tools available. A 3rd public hearing was held on February 14th, where draft maps were reviewed and 4 new focus maps were developed by the demographer based on the City Council's direction. Throughout this process, city staff worked with consultant Sherpepi Smith to complete a significant amount of public outreach, including phone calls, flyers, social media ads, newspaper ads, and public notices, as well as creating and maintaining a designated redistricting website. During this meeting, the City Council will complete the 4th required public hearing and select a final district map. Tonight, all maps submitted by the public and created by the demographer are available for consideration, including the 5 focus maps, which includes the current district map. Staff recommends the City Council select a map, identify any final adjustments needed, and instruct staff to return with an ordinance on March 28th. The entire redistricting process must be completed by April 17th of 2022. And with that, I will turn it over to the city's demographer, Michael Wagaman, for his presentation.
Good evening, council, and we'll jump right in with the brief PowerPoint and then showing you the revised plans based on your direction from the last meeting. As has been noted, this is the meeting where we're aiming to select a final plan where you can select from any of the plans that have been previously discussed, including but not limited to those revised options. And if any of those plans are close but not quite there, we can go through the live line drawing process, which you got a jump start in doing and understanding because we did it during the last meeting. The difference being the goal is at the end of this meeting is to actually select a final plan to move forward with the drafting of an ordinance. This is the end of an extensive process, and as was noted by city staff, there's been extensive outreach to the public and extensive engagement from your public in the process, which I'll go over a little bit more later. Just as a reminder, these are the criteria that govern this redistricting process. I won't go over them since you're all now experts on this stuff, but just as a reminder, if you're looking at which plans you like better or worse or final refinements, these are good fallback areas of, I want to make this change, or I prefer this plan based on the following criteria. So we're trying it back again to state law. When I mentioned there was that great public participation, as you know, we had 17 public plans, which was great. We also had the 4 initial plans that I put together at your last meeting. Generally, we're building around Plan Red, but there were some refinements on those, which is why non-coincidentally, we have the 4 revised plans whose names all fall from that red plan. And just for members of the public to note, before we go over those 4 revised plans, all of the plans are available on drawlivermore.org and will be maintained on the website for the next 10 years. So if you want to look, I'm only going to go over the revised plans, but all of them are available for public review and for consideration this evening. So with that, I'm going to switch over to the interactive software you got to play with at the last meeting. And on the screen, you see the red plan, which is, again, the plan that we kind of used as a starting point. It was kind of the generally preferred architecture at the last meeting. There were some changes that were requested. Some were made during the course of that last meeting, which I'll go over, and some were changes that were investigated more in between. The first plan I'm going to show you is the Scarlet Plan, which actually just makes a single change, which is this block along going just below the Arroyo and specifically shifting a population, a mobile home park population right in here. I will note that under the Scarlet Plan, there were some additional changes, which we'll look at in a moment, moving population near Junction K through 8. The Scarlet Plan specifically does not make that change because that was a place where the council was still had differing opinions and wanted to continue to think about that. The other change, which we'll talk about that this plan does not make, is the shift to Portola Avenue. I will note if that is a change that you did like the Scarlet Plan, but wanted to make that change, it is a change that could be made within acceptable population deviations, though it would start pushing those deviations higher because you're taking out of District 1 and shifting into District 2 there. So the Scarlet Plan, again, is the red plan with just that single block having been changed. The next plan is the Cardinal Plan, which you all know very well because you drew it during the last meeting. And it makes 3 changes to the red plan. Again, that single block shift to go south of the Arroyo, that shift we just discussed to move to Portola. And then the third shift, which was actually the key thing that kind of started the Cardinal Plan, which was to move that area around Junction and add it to District 1. One thing I will note on this plan that when it was being debated and discussed during the last meeting, there was some information that was inadvertently in error. There was a discussion about St. Michael's Church and St. Michael's School. And at the time we were kind of looking quickly and believed that both of those were in District 1, which actually ended up not being the case. I'm going to put up a map here so you can see that quickly. And the reason for that is there's actually not 2, but 3 institutions associated with St. Michael's in the area. There's the school, there's the church, and then there's actually the convent as well, excuse me. So when we were looking, we counted 2 things and not 3. So those areas are in fact currently being split between Districts 1 and 3. I will note that those 3 blocks there have a total of 56 people who live in them. So if that is again a place where there was direction to make a change to shift that line between Districts 1 and 3, that is something that could be looked at, but I did want to correct the record there and apologize for any confusion. With that, I'm going to zoom back out and temporarily I'm going to actually turn off both the red plan and then I'm going to zoom out and just show the Cardinal Plan on its own, which again has those 3 changes that we discussed. And then turning off the Cardinal Plan, as a reminder, there was discussion about looking at the communities of interest that had been submitted and seeing if those could all be united in a single plan. So really quickly, I'm going to go over what those were, just so you can see those. And though, because that really does underlie both the Crimson and the Rumity Plan. The first community of interest I'll note is kind of this area that's in South Livermore. There was also an overlapping community of interest that was explicitly labeled South Livermore, which you see here in pink, and you see the overlap between those. One thing I will note here is you start seeing that some of these communities of interest do have little overlaps, little areas of, for lack of a better term, dispute. And those are places where you would need to kind of potentially resolve some of those issues. As an example, a member of the public with the last name Burnham, I believe, submitted this teal area, which you can see that exact area we were just talking about where the mobile home park is overlapping between those. That would be, again, an area where you have 2 communities of interest that overlap. There's nothing bad about that. It's very common to see overlapping communities of interest, but it is something you are seeing in that area. Turning off those communities of interest, you'll note that there were 2 communities of interest, one for what was called North Downtown and one was for South Downtown, with the dividing line being the railroad. Again, just as an example of where there's different people have differing opinions, that Burnham submission again covers portions of downtown, but uses First Street as the dividing line. So again, those places for discussion and feedback over the course of this evening. Turning those off. There are some times where those communities of interest do fit together. We had a community of interest here in purple that was known as Springtown Vasco. And then one in blue that, and this is not my name, it was labeled as Girl Names Streets. So I assume that means something to you all. But you can see those fit in nice to each other. But we actually had a third community of interest in that area that was called Southeast Livermore, which is this green area. And you can see, again, an area of some discussion here that's kind of bordered by the rail track going down to Patterson Pass. The one other thing I'll note here is with this purple one called Springtown Vasco, there is this block, these two blocks here, which are kind of bordered by the rail track. And this is the laboratory. Very few people there. It's a commercial area by and large, but that is an area that in some of the public plans, when I went back and looked, was not always consistently where people thought that should go. So with all of those areas, the one thing I will note in this area that was highlighted is that the bulk of the population is right in here. There's a development that kind of looks like an extension of some of the housing, again, running just north of Patterson. So over here, there's a sports park and a BMX park, but the bulk of the population's right here. And that's why you see this area being assigned to the district to the south in most of the plans. With that, now you kind of see how all those fit together. I'm going to bring up the Crimson Plan. The Crimson Plan I'm going to bring up without any colors, so just the district boundaries, which you see here. And then I will start overlapping some of those community interest of areas. The big thing to note on the Crimson Plan is it's shifting the boundary north up to Railroad Avenue. And there's about 1,000 people in there, which leaves District 3 overpopulated. Which is why you're then seeing District 2 shifting and going south through the lab down to the south along Vasco Road. So there was, for example, some public comment saying, I love this plan, except why are you moving this area? And fundamentally, it's just trying to put too many people into one district, right? So trying to go all the way up to Railroad is what's causing, and you see this in some of that public plans, this shift of District 2 to the south, because you just can't put everybody into District 3. So again, comparing to Cardinal, you're seeing some of those common changes and some differences. You see this kind of ripple effect where, again, District 3 is moving up to Railroad. You're seeing District 1, again, adding that exact same area around Junction. In this case, the area bordered by Portola and Livermore is in District 1. That's again because you've taken a lot more out of District 1 in the downtown area. And again, seeing that shift of District 2 through the laboratory. Under this particular plan, unlike the Cardinal plan, you see the Arroyo being held. Again, this is an area where there could be some discussion. And just turning on all those communities of interest there all at once, you can see, if I move the label down, preserving all those communities of interest, except for, again, some of those areas where there were points of discussion. Knowing that this shift was something the council had not discussed at the last meeting and wanting to preserve options for your consideration, the Ruby plan is similar to the Crimson plan in that it starts with the idea of keeping as many of these submitted communities of interest whole, except using, instead of Railroad, using First Street as the dividing line. So you have the two plans that use 4th Street. You have this plan that uses Railroad, giving you a third option that uses First Street. And you see the big change there as we switch over to the Ruby plan is now we are able to use Patterson and not go south of the laboratory for District 2. Again, using that exact same line you saw before between 1 and 2, using Portola and then the area around Junction. And then again, through the downtown, instead of using 4th Street, using First Street. Now, this did leave District 1 a little on the low side. And so there's one additional change that was made. And that is since we weren't going to make any of these changes here, it really only left one place to make that, which is some of this higher density housing around Worthing and Patcham Commons, which I will highlight here. That's single block. And that's where you see that block moved from District 2 into District 1. It's also more broadly why you're seeing some higher deviations in this plan. Because again, we're trying to include as many people as possible who were identified as potentially going in District 3, knowing we couldn't quite get everybody in there. So I will just quickly, again, turn off all of these communities of interest layers and allow you to see both the Crimson plan, first, and then the Ruby plan second, as they stand alone. With that, again, all 4 of these plans are available for consideration. All of the public plans, all of the prior plans are all available for your consideration. Mr. Mayor, as with the last meeting, I can show plans or not share my screen based on your discretion. And with that, I can stop and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'm going to open the, excuse me, the public comment. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us? And you can, if so, could you, I think you've already explained how to participate, so we don't need to go through that again. So let's have our first attendee that wants to address us.
Yes, Mayor, there is one request to speak from AK Burnham. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, Honorable Council. So you've heard a lot of my thoughts already in the presentation. I personally like First Street as the boundary, but I understand that there are some deviations to be dealt with. However, I think it makes a more natural break, at least some portions of that south of First Street. But one thing I want to point out, and you talked last time about a secondary criteria, and that's where the growth will occur. And I thought about that some more, and it's not only a matter of where the growth will occur, but where the growth already has occurred. You realize that these census numbers are at least a year out of date, maybe a year and a half. And since that time, there have been apartment buildings coming on Chestnut. I'm not sure how many people there are there. It's a few hundred. You have the Legacy development, that's 220 units. That may be 400 or 500 people. You have the Eden housing. So if you think of just those, that's probably close to 1,000 people just on the Chestnut area and the Legacy Eden that would be naturally in District 1 if the boundary were at First Street. And given the fact that the deviations, we talk in terms of percentages, but if we talk about the deviations in terms of absolute numbers, it's like 1,500 is the biggest difference. And so when you're talking about 1,000 people who have either moved in or will shortly move into what would be District 1, that really narrows that quite a bit. So I urge you not to take the deviations as the most important thing from the census, but think more in terms of the communities of interest. So that concludes my comments. Thank you.
There are no more requests to speak.
Okay, I'll at this point bring it back to council. I see, let me get over to my panelist thing. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see, I after hearing the presentation and reviewing these in the packet, I favor Cardinal at this point. I think it's the map that best balances sort of all our constraints. I think the total deviation is among the lowest. Several of the plans push us pretty close to 10%, which I think is just a mistake at this point. As was stated, we're already growing since the census data was put out. I think it fixes some of the several some of the structural issues we had with the green plan, the current plan. So I think it dealt with those, and those were changes that addressed communities of interest as well. I think it biases a little toward District 1 is minus 2.9. The overall deviation is 5.6. District 1 is at minus 2.9, which I think accommodates some of that growth that we expect. And as Mr. Burnham states, we may have already seen, and we'll continue to probably see in that district over some of the others. I think that it also has among the lowest deferral count of the plans that we've strongly considered last time. So I guess the change I would like to suggest is that we get the St. Michael's Church School and Convent all in the same district. If that doesn't, change things significantly, it didn't sound like it would. So I guess that would be my first inclination, is to go with Cardinal, or Cardinal with minor variations. So I think I'll stop there and hear what everyone else has to say. Thanks.
Councilmember Kick.
Sorry, can you put Ruby up again? I think I wrote down the wrong. And can you put, is it possible to lay them over each other with no color? I'm like having a hard time visualizing the difference.
Absolutely can overlay multiple plans. Usually if you get past 2 or 3, it starts getting a little confusing. So
Yeah,
with our
can you
2
just do
plans-
Ruby and Cardinal? Because I was getting confused about what the major difference. Okay, it's really just a couple pieces right here. And so Cardinal has that small area below College Avenue in District 3, correct?
So the differences between the plans, Cardinal and Ruby, are what to do with that one block, which has the mobile home park, the shift to 4th Street instead of 4th Street, that kind of higher density housing where the commons are. And then this is about 16 people, about whether you're using the rail track or the northern boundary of the laboratory as the boundary between 2 and 3. And those are the 4 differences between those plans.
And so the mobile home park is in District 3 in Cardinal or in Ruby?
The mobile home park is in 3 under Cardinal. It is in 4 under Ruby. That's an area that you could make a change depending on direction.
Okay. Cardinal then is what I meant to say, is where I'm leaning. These are very minor differences. And it was really helpful. I just want to say I really appreciate seeing all those communities of interest overlapped. And it looks like we are doing a really, it's difficult, but doing as best a job as we can to keep those communities of interest together, which again is our charge, to keep those communities of interest together. So I would say I'm also leaning towards Cardinal then.
Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thanks. A couple of things. One is if you could put Cardinal up, Mr. Wagaman. Yeah, I think my concern last time was this little jog around the school that I don't find particularly appealing, because one of the things we were supposed to consider was understandable boundaries, and that just looks goofy to me. But I also understand Mr. Burnham's point, and I guess I wondered what would District 1 look like in terms of deviation if you were to, well, let's go to Scarlett for a second, if you wouldn't mind. So if you move the boundary, I guess the boundary at the north between 1 and 2, yeah, that one. If you moved it over to where it is on Cardinal.
So you're talking.
Move it to the west.
So the question is, what would happen if you shifted?
You have
this area?
Move that to the west.
Hold on one moment. And I can give you a quick count, and then we would have to go in the live line drawing to just verify that, but I can give you a quick count.
No, leave that the way it is.
So this area you want to leave where it is.
Yeah, I wanted to move the,
You want to go to Portola?
Oh,
yes.
this area.
yeah, that.
Okay.
Oh, perfect, yes.
So that area.
What would the
include-
deviation then if we were to do that?
So that area is 1,510 people. So if we were using the Scarlet plan, that would be removing 1,510 people from there, and we would be adding 1,510 to the other. And I'm just running those numbers if you want to bear with me for one moment.
What I was looking at was recognizing Mr. Burnham's comment, and Scarlet, which is the one that I proposed, has a plus 1.1% deviation. But if we were to do what we just did, it may get closer to the minus 2.9. I don't know though, but we
that
moved
would-
something else, so maybe not.
So that would create a total deviation under that plan of 9.4%.
Oh, yeah,
Because
Never mind.
District 1 would be,
yeah, okay.
oh, actually, let me verify that. I apologize.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's too much. Okay, so so go back to Scarlet, which is what I proposed last time. And the reason I like that is because one of the things that I appreciate are understandable boundaries. And I like that. I don't see the necessity of putting Junction and Lawrence School in one when they draw from area 2 as much as draw from area 1. So I don't get what the point in that is. That's one. I just want to make that comment. The other is, does anybody live in that block where the church is, the St. Michael's Church?
So according to the census,
Yeah.
there were 15 people counted in the block that included the church. There were, and it's loading up so I don't get them mixed up. So there were 15 people counted in that block. The block that included the school had 0 people, and the block that included the convent had 41. So
Well,
the
yeah, I
total
get
of
the-
those 3 would be 56.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand. I'm ambivalent about that. I don't see the necessity of having them all together. But I guess I'll wait to hear what others have to say. So I guess my opinion is Scarlet at this point.
Councilmember Monroe.
Well, first of all, I have to say, after going through this process, I'm really impressed that we've come down to 2 maps that are, what I'm hearing are Scarlet and Cardinal are the ones we're considering, and they are so close. I'm having trouble deciding between the 2, quite honestly. And where I'm looking actually is the dividing line between, whether or not to go along. So it's not around the schools, and it's not around St. Michael's, and it's not around the boundaries of 1. It's really around. I'm sorry. It is 1. It is whether or not the community of interest lines up. The best place for the boundary is Livermore Avenue or Portola. And I'm having a lot of trouble figuring out how to decide between those 2. I have gone back and forth in my own mind, arguing the point. And so, well, I'm hearing feedback from myself. I'm going to leave it there. I'm really happy with both. I want to hear what other people have to say, But I do want to just say that either way we go, I think we've done a good job. So,
Okay, I'll go next before we go around twice. So I would let's go back to Cardinal. And the two things that I would adjust here is, first of all, if it's easily doable, let's put the St. Michael's complex in one place. I mean, there's no reason not to if it's simple. And I don't know exactly. I think so. That's first question. Is that what's the simplest, least disruptive, most natural way to make that happen? I'll ask that of the demographer.
So there are, again, only about 56 people total in those 3 blocks. So the direction would just need to be whether to put those into District 1 or into District 3. And then once you see that change, to see if there are any other blocks you want to shift to make sure, you're using boundaries that you're comfortable with in that area.
Since it's kind of in that neighborhood and everything else, what would it look like to make sure that the whole complex stays in 3?
So to move those 2 additional blocks would move a total of 41 people into District 3. So that's what the new district boundary would look like there. So then the just question is, are you comfortable with that, or do you want to shift any additional blocks in that area?
And if we went all the way over, going with Councilmember Carling's point of, making, and I certainly subscribe to natural boundaries, if we went just all the way up to First Street or something, does that make any sense? Is that too many people?
We will find out quickly. There's now in that new highlighted area, there are 60 people. So again, you would be well within acceptable deviations.
Well, but if the other 2 blocks, so that you didn't, those, if you just went down the.
So this would be McLeod Street?
Yeah.
Is that, okay. So that is a total of 103 people. So again, you would be within acceptable deviations.
So I'm okay with just moving the 2, but if people want to, get hung up and they want to, on boundaries, want to go all the way down McLeod, I'm okay with that. So but I would go with the fewer number, really. Now, and then the other thing I would want to explore is go up to around Junction Avenue. And I want to try and remember what Councilmember Carling was talking about. The question is, and then, so Councilmember Carling was talking about, it's a little bit much. You were telling us we had census block issues. And as I remember, Councilmember Kick was concerned about the apartments just south of Portola, close to Livermore Avenue. So my question is, could we come along Portola and then drop down Enos to Junction? So, is that possible? I think that's Enos that's.
So Junction is, I'm sorry.
That's Junction Avenue, but you see where that 1 is there or whatever? To the left of that, I may not have the street right, but you see there's hold your cursor, or just slow down with your cursor so I can easier. Move your cursor to the right a little bit until you hit the vertical. Okay, right there. Now, can you just drop down there to Junction? Because I think that's Enos, but I can't remember.
So that is Enos. There's 274 people in that area. I'll put up the Google map, which may help you see what's in that area.
Oh, no, that's okay. What I was trying to do is be more accommodating to what Councilmember Carling was talking about. And trying to accommodate what Councilmember Kick was talking about with respect to those apartments. I think going over Portola down Enos to Junction is clean and understandable. So that's what I would propose, that modification to Cardinal. Okay, that's my suggestion at this stage.
And I And just quickly, Mr. Mayor, just verifying what that would do to your deviations. And it would increase your deviations, but you would still be around 6.5% with that change.
So that's still within reasonableness, I guess. But so if necessary to not bring that section of the schools in, then that would be consideration. I'm okay with Cardinal with at least the change of the simplest of fixing St. Michael's, and then I'll put out the Junction Avenue modification to, from Enos down for consideration. Sorry, Councilmember Kick.
The issue is that block that you would be removing has high density housing that's more similar to what's on the west of Enos than what's on the east of Enos. So if we could have this discussion, but put that north downtown community of interest over, because we're trying to keep that together. So if that's not what was submitted, and that my memory is incorrect, that's fine, but I want to make sure we're using the data we were given. So if that community of interest is kept together, then we can't make that change. And that's the whole point, is that was submitted as a community of interest that we were trying to keep together. And I get we got to have understandable boundaries, but I would propose going all the way up to Portola then, if we want to make an easy, if it's more about having understandable boundaries, then you put that in one, right where you're hovering over.
I'm good with that.
That's an understandable boundary, but it does not break up the community of interest. And I just want to drive it home that that's our job, to try and do our best to keep those together.
Well, it's one of many factors, but it's an important one. So I'm good with that. Let's see, are we ready for Councilmember Bonanno at this point?
I guess that's yes. So I just want to be clear about the St. Michael's. I don't think it makes an appreciable difference in the numbers. I think it just makes sense, right? I just think to break up a complex like that doesn't make any sense. And, 10 years from now, when people other than us look at these boundaries, they'll say, well, why did they split that up? It doesn't affect a lot of people, but it just makes sense. And I think that's also part of our understandable, our charge to be clear and make understandable decisions. I think it would be better in District 1, because I think there are communities of interest in District 1 that use that church, use that school. So if it can stay in 1, I think that's a better choice. And I'm fine with the decision of the north side that we just discussed. So again, the primary criterion though is population deviations, and I think none of these changes blow that up. So I'll just leave it there. I just want to make clear that I understand there's not population in the church, not appreciable population, but there is some, and the convent, and we should put them all together, keep them together.
I would agree. Maybe you would like to ask to see how it is if it stays in 1. We showed some examples of it staying in 3. What's the simplest way to keep it in 1?
If you wanted to, the simplest way would be to simply move the 1 block, which has the church, which means you would be coming down Church and down to 5th Street and then coming back up to 4th, which would move all of a total of 15 people.
I think that's the right choice, because I think the community of interest, it's better from a community of interest standpoint to be in 1. That's my view. Others may have a different view.
And you don't need to move any other blocks for symmetry or cleanliness, clean lines or anything?
If you wanted to extend that boundary down.
No, not. I was asking Vice Mayor Bonanno if that's it. I mean, I'm good with it. I'm just wondering if that's.
Right. We don't want a lot of little island, it's not an island, it's attached. We don't want a lot of those jogs, but in some cases, there are other factors outweigh it. That's all.
Okay.
And I think I'm done. Thank you.
Councilmember Monroe.
So to that point, what I'm wondering is, so, okay, so take that little one block and that's fine. But it does look funny. And yeah, I understand, kind of communities of interest in, funny is okay. But is there a way to preserve, it does make sense to me to have that complex together. In the interests of clean lines and so on, what would happen to both to communities of interest around that, sort of taking that out of the picture, and to numbers if it was smoothed along, I can't see what that street,
Just drop it to Livermore Avenue is what you're saying, I
Yeah.
think.
but yes, that's what I'm saying.
Just the two
Oh.
things south, west of it. That's it.
So that would be a total of 71 people in that area, which would be
And then I
following
guess my
down Fifth
concern
Street
is-
to
yeah.
East Street.
Well, and then my concern is that it's not clear to me that those two blocks, well, okay, so there's a few people who live there. My guess is they've got more in common with the people who are living in the blocks next to them than with the convent. So never mind, let's let the little tab sit there.
So you're good?
I'm good.
Now,
I actually do have one more question, which is, can we talk a little bit about it? I said my real concern or my real question was how to think about the difference between Livermore Avenue and Portola. And I'm just curious to hear why one works, why one versus the other. Because I can make as I said, I can argue for one or the other in my own mind.
if we could just step through this a second. So you're okay with the St. Michael's tab? And
Yes, I am.
you're okay with the taking that little chunk right south of Portola right there. So let's
So that is keeping the Junction Avenue School with its community of interest, correct?
right. And it's got cleaner
Yes.
lines.
Yes.
Okay, so you're good with that. So I think what I've heard so far is that Councilmember Kick, Councilmember Monroe, myself, and Vice Mayor Bonanno are good with those two changes to Cardinal. And that now and the three of us, Vice Mayor Bonanno, myself, and Kick are good as is. And now you want to tee up the Portola Livermore Avenue question, right? And did I phrase this correctly?
Yeah.
So far?
And this
I mean,
is
okay.
with.
No, just a second. I'm asking all the other members other than yourself, if I've stated it correctly, and Councilmember Carling is after the other map. Correct, right? I mean, that's where we're at.
I think
So
you
now,
said correctly.
so we've agreed on all these little changes at least 4. And now we're teeing up this question. Now, if we'll now, I think, turn it to the demographer to answer the question, but I believe it's the same question that Councilmember Carling asked, and I can't remember which way it goes, but I think moving that back across ups our deviation quite a bit.
That's right. It was way too many people.
Correct. By adding this larger area around Junction plus this area, plus keeping the line along basically 4th Street, now District 1 is becoming overpopulated.
So Councilmember Monroe, does that help you decide?
It does, but it goes back to a more basic question, which is, so yes, I understand that would be the result of it, but the basic question is, which is the more natural divide? So in other words, if the current boundary got moved from Portola to Livermore Avenue, the result would be, yes, one would be overpopulated, something else would have to move. My question is, and I don't know that anybody wants to do that to happen, but my question is, what's the rationale for keeping, for not doing the break at Livermore and doing it at Portola? As I said, I can argue it either way. I just want to make sure that we are actually.
Well, it's two things. One is, if I could try and answer. One is, we just heard that the deviation goes up, and it means we're going to have the same philosophical question somewhere else. So we don't escape ultimately having that problem. The other one is, this is the line as drawn in the current map. And it was thought through that time. And we wrestled with all of this, and we came to the conclusion it was all right. So those are the two arguments or thoughts that I would put out here. It was good enough last time, and moving it causes us a problem somewhere else. And then we'll go loop to loop here for a while, and I don't think to a lot of benefit, frankly.
Well, I think our responsibility is to do this again and now, not last time. I mean, look, the arguments I can make are that that population in Portola is its own little thing. It actually doesn't connect across. Therefore, it doesn't matter a lot which way it goes. That's actually where I would hold.
That's the logic last time.
And that makes sense to me. The argument I would make on the other side is that the natural dividing line is Livermore Avenue, and that ignoring that is a mistake. Now, again, I'm okay either way. So if that's the logic last time, I actually just wanted that spelled out, more or less, and to agree and to say, have it stated that that matters more than connecting it, because it's its own thing. It doesn't matter which way it goes. Would that be a correct statement of the logic before?
Yeah, that's where I remember from last time. Is it the
right. Well,
Portola is no less a major avenue than Livermore Avenue.
Fine. Okay.
Fundamentally,
that's what was niggling at me. That was what I wanted stated fully, although I don't know that I could have expressed it until just now. So thank you very much for indulging me. I'm good with where we are right now.
Okay. At this point, if there's no further discussion, we can have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to give me half a moment to bring up the Cardinal plan and commit those two changes, just so you would see what those final deviations were?
Sure.
Before you voted?
Sure.
Quickly.
Good idea. I thought
just so you have the right map on the screen when you're voting.
Right. Good idea.
All right. So this would be the Cardinal map with as amended. When you make the motion, just include it with any technical non-substantive changes, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So the areas being added to District 1 are, again, the church and the area bordered by Portola, Kelly, Enos, and I believe that's Lee Avenue. Oops, not that. And you see those areas having been shifted. And the new total deviation would be, that would be 4.2%. So that would be, as I zoom out, you would see those committed changes. When I say technical non-substantive issues, what we'll do based on your motion this evening is prepare an ordinance. And there's some things we couldn't clean up until you finalize a plan where, for example, there's this weird little divot. What that is there's a census block there that has 0 people, and we'd be able to smooth that off just so you don't have go down the rail tracks and back and forth up and down Mines Road. We would just smooth that out. We just can't do that till we finalize a plan. But then you would see that revised plan for an ordinance at your future meeting. And I'd note any of those technical changes would not move any population. So that's, again, just to make sure you're using understandable boundary, not moving any people. I would never touch a person.
Okay. Are we, you going to present us with the deviations?
So the total deviation again would be a total deviation of 4.2%, with your largest
Okay.
district being 2.6 and your
Okay.
smallest being negative 1.5.
Okay, Councilmember Kick.
So that area by St. Michael's, if we just went down to east and took that little triangle and switched it from 1 to 3, it could make us more even, but I'm not sure it really matters. It's a more understandable boundary if you go take the whole triangle, the whole little,
Oh, the whole triangle. Hold on one
Mhm.
moment.
I don't know how many people are there, but it might bring us to a very nice even number and maybe be more understandable boundaries. I don't believe that that's cutting up a community of interest that I remember. But it might not make sense.
So that would leave your deviation of District 1 at negative 1.0, District 3 at 2.1. So your total deviation would now be 3.1%. The only community of interest potentially in that area is that Burnham one, which I believe was following, and those north of Livermore communities of interest, which are cutting into those areas.
Does anybody have any thoughts on if that makes sense or not? It just seemed like a weird, it seemed just seemed like a weird little triangle, but.
Well, it seems weird. It seems weird that the people right across the street from the high school are in a different district, right? Shouldn't you just go all the way down Maple Street to east? Or did we?
Maple.
Oh, I see.
splits,
No,
yeah.
no, you're right. You're right. Councilmember Kick, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I was misreading. That's the high school there, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's nobody in the rest of that. So it's clean. I'm good.
Okay. Then
So-
at least people know, we can at least use a little bit less cuts than before.
So the direction
And
is to
that's
commit
less
this change.
deviation that I hear.
Yes, less deviation.
So yes, with that change, your total deviation is now 3.1%. The boundary you're using there is Church Street to 5th to Maple to East, where then East becomes 4th Street.
Those are okay. So Councilmember Carling.
Sorry. I'm okay with it.
Oh, okay. A motion? Vice Mayor Bonanno.
I would move that we move map Cardinal forward as the final map with the changes as described. I don't know how technically I need to describe them. The chunk that's in the Portola area, what do we call that? South of Portola, and then the St. Michael east up to East Avenue. I'm not describing these well, I apologize, but I don't know how much detail you need. Those two changes. Cardinal plus those two changes, I move we move forward as our final map.
I'll second.
Wait.
Hey,
We have
my hand was up. My
recognition
hand
here.
was up.
Councilmember Monroe's hand was raised.
I second.
So Councilmember Kick, you can third it.
Okay, I'll third. Sorry, I wasn't looking at this hands.
Okay, can we
Mr.
have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mayor,
Or
just
I
to
guess I
verify,
should say, is there, I guess there any further discussion, but, Mr. Weigelman, what would your question?
does that also include any technical non-substantive that affect no
Yes.
population to clean up? Okay, just want to
Yes.
verify. Thank you.
Anything else we need to say to make this all done? Okay. I just want to, before we vote, I just want to say, I really appreciate all the work you've done, Mr. Weigelman. And I think, and I want to appreciate everybody who submitted the communities of interest. I mean, understanding they're all kind of, not perfect, but they were really, really good and very helpful. And I wanted to thank Councilmember Kick for suggesting that we display the maps in that way. And I think, I've watched some other districting processes, and I'm really pleased with how this one went and how thoroughly we covered it. And I appreciate Councilmember Monroe's question around the Portola North Livermore, because that's one that I struggled with last time and this time too. So I just want to say I think we've done pretty well here. And any other final comments by anybody? Other not, we can just have a roll call.
I'll do a final comment. I don't know if you can see my hand,
Sure.
but I want to second everything you said. But I also particularly want, I know there's been discussion along the way and push to get more and more community involvement. I just want to appreciate the amount of community involvement that we had and the work from consultants and city staff in making that happen at a time where we are going through transition from less participation to more participation. This is the way it should be done, and even more so as we go forward.
Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, passes unanimously. So, well done. Okay, we're now on to item 3.1, which is confirmation of the city historian appointment. Is there a staff report on that?
Honorable Mayor, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager. And I'm going to introduce our planner for the item, who is Jake, who is going to give us a quick introduction for our city historian.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The city historian position was established in 2005 to increase the public's awareness and education of Livermore's history. The city historian is appointed generally to a 2-year term, and the current term expired on February 1st. On February 3rd, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. On February 3rd, the Historic Preservation Commission interviewed 2 candidates for the position, and the commission selected Richard Finn as the most qualified, given his extensive experience leading history walks for adults and children, being the co-founder of the Tri-Valley History Council, preparing a Livermore historical plaque book, and serving as Livermore's city historian for the past 6 years. For these reasons, the Historic Preservation Commission and staff recommend the City Council reappoint Richard Finn as Livermore City Historian to a term ending February 1st, 2024. That concludes staff's presentation. Both staff and Mr. Finn are available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we, I don't believe we need public comment on this item. Is that correct?
Mayor, we will allow public comment for this item.
I missed that. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes, we do.
Oh, yes, we do. Okay, well then I'll open public comment on this on this item. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close public comment on this and bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Well, I would be happy to move. We appoint Mr. Finn again as city historian. I've seen him in action. He's done a terrific job. And he's involved in so many things in the community. I think we're very lucky to have him continue as our city historian. I'd be happy to make that motion unless there's other comments first.
Okay, Councilmember Carling.
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. So passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Finn, and looking forward to working with you on this. We're on to the next item then. And that's the Citizens Forum. And now, if the city clerk could direct how to tell people how to participate in tonight's meeting for the Citizens Forum, that would be good.
Thank you, Mayor. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person, per item. Members of the public can participate by using the raise hand feature or *9 if calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens for each item to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand at the beginning of each item. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin upon being unmuted. Residents using interpretation services will be provided 6 minutes to submit their comments. Please note, the speaker is not required to answer any questions from the City Council, and the City Council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address the speaker's comments when a council member believes it is relevant to a particular business item. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. It's 8:05, so we typically allow 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting for public citizens forum, and if there's any spillover, we'll pick it up towards the end of the meeting. So that means we'll go until 8:35, and the city clerk will announce when there's 5 minutes remaining. And then will also be announced if we do spill over how many speakers will be heard after matters for consideration. So could we have the first person who wishes to address us, please?
Yes, Mayor. The first speaker is Alan Marling, followed by Carrie Olds. Alan Marling, please unmute yourself.
Mayor and council members, I was shocked by something I read in the newspaper, The Independent. Lawyers of special interest groups litigating against local solar energy argued as follows. The Aramis solar farm should not be allowed because then, quote, the entire valley, estimated at roughly 1,100 acres, will likely be covered with solar projects because those projects also would have access to the same substation, end quote. This is a slippery slope argument designed to frighten people with an extreme scenario. But what surprised me wasn't that these special interest groups were willing to use a fallacious argument. On Earth Day last year, they claimed that, quote, the public need for solar is overstated or doesn't exist, end quote. Rather, I was shocked that the worst case scenario envisioned by the lawyer was my imagined best case scenario. Talk about generational difference in perspective. They're afraid of widespread construction of green energy and any wildlife loss that goes with it. If only we could be so lucky. That future sounds like one where we've taken the threat of climate change seriously with a commensurate societal response. The future I'm afraid of is where we continue full steam ahead into climate crisis. I'm afraid of a wildfire season that lasts the entire year. I'm afraid of skies perpetually ashen with the smoke of burning homes. I'm afraid of not being able to go outside without a rebreather mask, lest smoke damages my lungs and makes me more vulnerable to viral pandemics. According to the recent IPCC report, my fears are all too likely. According to the Department of Energy's 2021 report, we will need both rooftop and solar farms to meet Californians' energy goal minimums. Meanwhile, tribal leaders in South America continue to beg Californians to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Amazon Watch reports half the crude oil extracted from the Amazon rainforest goes to our state, driving deforestation. I wonder if these special interest groups only care about habitat loss if they can see it from their backyards. And let's not ignore world events. Dictators like Putin stay in power because we depend on their fossil fuels. A rapid mobilization to renewable energy will keep the world safer in more ways than one. If only nuclear war were the lone apocalypse I had to worry about. Meanwhile, special interest groups expect me to be afraid of solar panels. Shame on Jean King for funding these special interest groups. Shame on Joan Sepala for pushing their false arguments in her newspaper. And shame on Livermore Valley Performance Arts Center for keeping both women on their board of directors. They will give the youth a stage at the bankhead. but not a future.
The next speaker is Carrie Olds, followed by Jackie Coda and Alan Burnham. Carrie Olds, please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Carrie Olds. I'm the Program Manager for the Meals on Wheels program with Spectrum Community Services. I come tonight to talk to you about March for Meals. It is the 50th anniversary of the Meals on Wheels program, and in March we celebrate that. During the week of March 21st through the 25th will be our Champions Week, and I'm here to make sure that you get a personal invitation to come and take a ride with us to see what it is that we do in the community. Currently, we are serving 130 homebound seniors in Livermore. In the Tri-Valley, collectively, it's 280 that we are serving. It is only with the help of volunteers and the cities that we are able to continue to do this. So tonight, I invite you to reach out to me if you would like to attend and come and take a ride with me and my trained volunteers. You can reach me at 925-483-1989 or email me directly at colds@spectrumcs.org. For all of the community, if you would like to have information about volunteering, you too can reach me at either of those. My phone number, 925-483-1989, or my email, colds@spectrumcs.org. Again, Mayor, I appreciate all that you do for us and all the city council members. So if you'd like to come out and take a ride with us and see what we do to help our homebound seniors, I'm happy to take you out. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Next speaker is Jackie Coda, followed by Alan Burnham. Jackie Coda, please unmute yourself.
It is unfortunate to hear the younger generation sit here on a public forum and talk about their fears of global warming. It's unfortunate because of the fact that it's quite obvious that that generation and some of those kids have been indoctrinated into an unproven theory. Global warming doesn't exist. It's never been proven. Yet fat cat bureaucrats looking to money launder constantly impose the fear of climate change into the minds of our youth. And our youth, because they've been taught not to speak up or to fight back. We've seen that in the last 2 years with how these bureaucrats fall into the scam of COVID being a deadly, deadly virus. But yet, once that virus and that PSYOP no longer serves their purpose, they move on to the new PSYOP of war. You talk about how the Biden administration wants to free us of fossil fuels, but yet we see it every day now, the fallout from those policies. $6, $7 gallons of gas. Good job. Nice vote. You're ruining our economy with your progressive, quote unquote, Marxist ideologies. And it's unfortunate because all of these cities that bow to the PSYOP of global warming have never proven their theories. So there is no climate crisis. It's all a joke. And if you actually believe it, I feel very sorry for you. It's time for all of us to start taking a good look at how our bureaucracies and governments are lying to us. Just like how the Biden administration got caught lying about the biolabs. The biolabs that they said didn't exist. And yet it was proven a week later that they do exist. All of you people that talk about conspiracy theories, you've all been wrong. Every single one of you. We've been right. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're conspiracy analysts. We've been correct about everything. And we're tired of you people kowtowing to government propaganda and lies. It's time to wake up, look at the facts, and start to live in a reality that doesn't include psyops and propaganda and lies.
Next speaker is Alan Burnham. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Honorable Council. I would like to call your attention to the Tri-Valley Innovation Fair at the fairgrounds in Pleasanton this coming weekend. It's hosted by Quest Science Center, which I founded about 3 years ago. And one of the founding principles, as those of you involved in city government are aware, was better education of the public about science so that we can have more intelligent discussions and more thoughtful conclusions about how science is affecting the decisions we have to make. And I think, as you've noted from the comments by 2 previous speakers, that there is some disagreement about conclusions, which I think perhaps a good understanding of science would help resolve. I bring up the fact that Dennis O'Brien and I were practicing a renewable energy demonstration this afternoon at the old Nob Hill shopping center. And it talks about basically the fundamentals of solar energy, but the fact that the sun doesn't shine all the time, so you need storage. And there's different ways of storage: batteries, which is chemical; electrolysis, which is chemical. There's also raising weights, either pumping water or mechanical weights. And all these things need to really be understood in order to design a viable electrical power grid. And I'm sure Mayor Warner is quite familiar with this, as that he had spent a lot of his career on this issue. But the general point that I would like to make is that the city has been supportive of Quest Science Center. We appreciate that. And now is the chance for all of Livermore to migrate over to Pleasanton for an afternoon to learn a bit of science that is important in our lives. And hopefully we can also inspire a younger generation to actually learn sound science and not be taken in by a propaganda by any political extreme. Thank you.
Mayor, there are no more requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public or citizens forum at this time. And we're now on to the consent calendars. Any item, let's see, I'll go through this little thing. Just remind people that consent calendar items are considered routine in nature and acted upon by the city council with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input must use the raised hand feature during the public comment period to comment on any of the consent calendar items. At this point, before I go to public comment, is there any item that the council would like to pull for discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll open public comment on the consent calendar. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on this?
Yes, Mayor, there is one request to speak. Jackie Coda, please unmute yourself.
I wanted to speak tonight, thank you very much, about consent calendar item number 5.6. It seems a little ridiculous that we are continuing this state of emergency that our city is in for no reason, when there is no state of emergency. We've seen Super Bowls, we've seen playoff games, we've seen festivals, people are walking around downtown at the farmer's market. There is no emergency. So the fact that we are actually pushing through a recommendation to continue a teleconference meeting is absolutely asinine. We, the people of Livermore, elected our elected officials, and we have the right to face you face to face and tell you about our grievances and concerns. It's been over 2 years. You've been hiding behind electronic data, electronic screens. There's no emergency. What are you afraid of? Why are you hiding? We're tired of it. It's time to get back to normal. It's time to stop waiting around for the corrupt, fraudulent bureaucrats to give you permission to actually start meeting in person again. It's time for you to actually be leaders, because we've seen none of that for quite some time. You've been scared little people hiding behind your screens and not addressing the public. So I would like to suggest that you start meeting in person, or how about this? Make it hybrid. But we want our elected officials back down in City Hall because we want to come down there and look you in the eyes and tell you about how we feel about a lot of things. Because we're tired of you hiding behind the video screen and the video monitor and then shutting us off without having conversations or answering to our concerns. We're tired of bloated, bureaucratic governments and your tyranny and your fears over nothing. It's time to get back to normalcy. Thank you.
Mayor, there are no more requests to speak.
I'll close the public comment on the consent calendar. Bring it back to the council. Councilmember Carling.
Thank you. I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay. I'll second it. Okay. Or I guess Councilmember Kick wanted to second it. So can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
and Mayor Warner.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Item 6.1 was covered earlier. We're now on to 7.1, which is the resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with the City of Pleasanton and the Dublin San Ramon Services District to construct and operate a temporary joint use residential recycled water fill station and appropriating $378,000 for FY 21-22 and $100,000 for FY 22-23 for this purpose. We have the staff presentation, please.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager, and I'm going to introduce Scott Lanfear, our Director of Public Works, who's going to give us a short presentation on this item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I hope the presentation is being viewed correctly. Okay, good. Before you this evening is consideration of a resolution for an agreement between the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, and the Dublin San Ramon Services District for construction and operation of a recycled water facility located in Dublin. Staff is requesting your authorization for the city manager to sign the agreement. As you're aware, we're currently operating under stage 2 conditions of our water shortage contingency plan, which restricts overall water usage and requires regulated outdoor watering. The state has also enacted some additional restrictions as well, such as prohibiting watering within 48 hours of rainfall, not washing our sidewalks and driveways, and prohibiting potable water for decorative fountains. Staff anticipates that these prohibitions will continue to operate through the remainder of the 2022 calendar year. During the previous drought in 2015, Livermore Municipal Water offered recycled water free of charge at the water reclamation plant. At that time, over 5 million gallons of recycled water were provided to nearly 940 customers. Unfortunately, that service proved to be very expensive, inefficient, and raised some potential safety concerns for residents due to the limited space available on the site. As a result of the current drought conditions and watering restrictions, we have partnered with the City of Pleasanton and the Dublin San Ramon Services District to construct and operate a larger, more cost-effective recycled water facility. By working with 2 other agencies, we're able to provide a safe, efficient facility to distribute recycled water to Livermore and other Tri-Valley residents. The location was selected based on ease of access, availability of a recycled water main line, as well as lowest cost. The site selected is at the northeast corner of Gleason Drive and Arnold Road in Dublin, as shown on the map. It's owned by the Dublin San Ramon Services District and is being offered at no cost. The site has ample access, plenty of space to build an appropriately sized facility, as well as access to a main recycled water line. The project will have a total of 50 fill stations consisting of 4 rows of 5 double-sided stations. The site is designed to have traffic flow one direction into and out of the facility, and 2 station attendants will be on site to check passes and ensure safe filling for all customers. Construction costs are estimated to be approximately $1 million, with about $300,000 annually for operations. All costs will be evenly shared by the 3 agencies. Thus, Livermore's contribution would be approximately $333,000 initially and $100,000 annually thereafter. The Dublin San Ramon Services District will provide the land and maintenance of the facility. Pleasanton will provide financial management and pass issuance, and Livermore will contribute the recycled water as well as staffing. Construction of the site is expected to begin late April and continue into May. Operations are expected to begin early this June. The agreement is slated for at least 5 years, which could be extended if necessary. Annual passes will initially be offered for $100 and will allow one household unlimited trips to the site per calendar year. The cost for the pass may be adjusted in future years depending on the volume of passes sold. Pleasanton will track costs and disperse collected fees between all the agencies annually. Staff anticipates that the facility will not fully be funded by user fees, which will likely require some additional amount of subsidies by each agency in future years. That concludes the presentation, and staff is available for any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Before we come back, we'll ask, do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public comment and now bring it back to the council for discussion. Okay, Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lanfear. I think this is a great idea. I've heard people, when we weren't able to offer it last year, I guess it was, hoping there would be a way found to bring it back. So I think this is a good idea. And I understand there are reasons why we couldn't do this at our treatment plant area as well. I don't think Mr. Lanfear mentioned that, but there were, I think, also other construction issues we were dealing with there. I had just 2 questions. One is, where do people get the carboys, the large tanks that they put in the back of their trucks and use to transport the water? That's one question. And the other question is the state offering any, considering we're in a statewide mega drought, is the state offering any possibility of subsidies or any, rebates or for the cities spending money to make this service possible? Is there any way to recoup some of the outlay that each of the cities is putting into this? So those are my 2 questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Bonanno. I'm not exactly sure where people could purchase the trailer tanks. I believe either through an online purchase or perhaps there is some information our management analyst Anthony Smith might be able to provide. He was around the last time that this was being done. And Anthony, do you know of any places where people can buy those trailers either here in town or online?
Hi, this is Anthony Smith, management analyst. I'm not directly aware of any place to purchase them. People have purchased them, during the last drought, but it would be a completely private transaction.
And on the second question, Vice Mayor Bonanno, I'm not sure of any current state subsidies or reimbursements that would be provided to us. We could definitely research that and get back to you with any additional information if that were to be the case.
Yeah, just, the state has surplus, I understand, this year. I don't know. I mean, if this is something that cities doing this, we can keep our potable water use down. It might be something that the state has considered, and asking about it seems like at least a worthwhile thing to do. Thanks.
We will certainly investigate it.
Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to say I support this as well, and I certainly appreciate the time and the energy that our 3 cities have put together to come up with this plan. I think it's an excellent example of how the three cities work together, addressing the needs of a larger population. So thanks, Scott, to you and your team, and to the other folks in Public Works and in Pleasanton and DSRDS. Thank you.
Councilmember Monroe.
I agree with my colleagues. This is something that needs to happen. I appreciate the collaboration. And just looking towards the future, this mega drought that we're in is not the end. Yeah, this may go away, but we're in what is being called the aridification of the West, which says to me that this is one step of many. I know that we have the Climate Action Plan coming before us shortly. I'm sure that many of these issues will be addressed, but I just want to sort of I want to point this out as one step of many that we will have to be taking going forward as we moved into a drier and drier climate. And thank you for taking this step.
So do I hear a motion?
I move we accepted the staff recommendation. How's that?
I'll second.
Okay, good. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, can we have a roll call, please?
Member Carly,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We're now on to item 7.2. Resolution approving the draft vision statement and guiding principles for the 2045 general plan update. Can we have the staff presentation, please?
Honorable Mayor, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager, and I'd like to introduce our senior planner, Andy Ross, who will give a short presentation on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Can everyone see my screen okay? Great, thank you. So good evening, Mayor Warner and members of the City Council. On January 10th, the General Plan Update Project Team presented to the Council the draft vision statement and guiding principles that was developed based on community input, advisory committee feedback, and Planning Commission recommendations. And at that meeting, Council generally liked the content and formed a subcommittee of Mayor Warner and Councilmember Monroe to work with staff to refine and format the vision statement. So the content of the new draft vision statement and principles remains the same as the previous version the council reviewed. The revised draft vision statement is succinct and clear and concise, and themes such as mobility, economy, and housing have been reordered and reformatted into guiding principles. Staff recommends the council approve the revised draft vision statement and guiding principles, which will serve as a foundation for the general plan update and various work components moving forward. And at this point, ask if Honorable Mayor, if you would like to add anything about the subcommittee's work or the final product for the benefit of the colleagues on council, after which staff would be available for any questions. Thank you.
Oh, don't need to say anything other than we had very animated conversations and productive. Councilmember Monroe, would you want to add anything?
Really enjoyed it. All the animation, including the animation. I have to say that the content that was provided was fantastic, and working to make it, what was the word you used, Andy? Concise. I appreciate that, the opportunity. So hope everyone else likes it too.
Vice Mayor Bonanno.
I just want to appreciate both of you taking this on. I really, really like the conciseness of the statement, and I think the guiding principles are awesome. Really sort of embody what I think we are and what I hopefully will, what we value, what we are, and hopefully we will continue to, strengthen all of these principles through the general plan update. So really want to thank you for doing it. And I like the icons too. I think icons in these kinds of documents are really, really add value, give something, a little more interest to the document. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
and before I go to any other comments, I had a couple of suggested modifications that were sent to me that I would like to offer. And I'm sorry, I thought I said I would. In the original, we've got in 2045, Livermore will be a unique community with a big heart where families and individuals flourish and diverse people work together for the common good. The suggestion was individuals flourish and people with diverse backgrounds work together. That was a suggestion, and if people are good with that, I would, okay, that looks like okay. And then the second change, let's see. Then I don't know exactly where it goes, but I think it's under the, let's see, excuse me for a second. Well, and the second sentence where it says will ensure services and infrastructure for a high quality of life, to change it to will ensure sufficient or possibly, other option, or sustainable services and infrastructure. So I think the point was not just services, but sufficient or sustainable. And I personally like sustainable. I guess that motion, that sense in there. So could we add sustainable in between ensure and services? People okay with that? Councilmember Monroe.
I'm okay with that, but I would say that sustainable and sufficient are two different things. I would not be, I hate to add two words, but
you're the both and person, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I know. So just to walk through this just for a second is, so sustainable means that we can keep them going. Sufficient means that everybody, that it's enough for everybody. They kind of work against each other in a way. They're in tension with each other. You know what? I would actually I would argue for let's not do either of them. And the reason for that is that I'm actually okay with both or neither, but I would actually argue that a high quality of life implies both of those. So that said, I'm not going to go to the mat on it.
I like your last thought of don't add it because it's implied by a high quality of life. Vice Mayor Banana.
Sorry, now that you've added the modifier around diverse people, which diverse people is a little awkward. I see, I think, why there's some interest in maybe tweaking that a little bit. But to me, background implies a limited area of someone's possible diversity. I'm sorry, I know I'm echoing. I don't know if I'm echoing to myself. I don't know if I'm getting everyone's getting my feedback, but the background is just sort of like you came from diversity. You may not, it just seems like it's more diversity of ideas, diversity of experience, diverse backgrounds. Is there a word that sort of is a little broader than background? I can live with diverse people. I could live with background. I'm just throwing it out there as, is it a word that just limits the definition maybe a little bit too much? And I will, again, live with whatever the group thinks is important, if it should be changed or not.
Perspectives could do it, but anyway, we'll go to Councilmember Carling. It could be diverse backgrounds and perspectives or whatever, but diverse people is a little, I can see why some of that trips somebody up. Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, Councilmember Kick may have a better answer because I'm going to pick on something else. I just wondered if unique is really required because every community is unique. And I don't think unique adds anything in the first sentence. So that's my comment.
Well, that gives us, if we take that word out, we get room for another one. So I'm good with that. It's,
That-
you know, I think it's a little self-serving because
Yeah,
you find out whatever organization you're in, you always think you're unique, and you look around, you're not so much. So I could take that out.
right.
It could be a spectacular community. Councilmember Kick.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious
Yeah.
community? Is that the word? No, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, lived experience, from diverse lived experiences. That's just a term that's used a lot. It implies more than diversity of thought. And you can fit more things in the term lived experience. So that was my suggestion, if that helps.
Well, do you need lived? Because it's kind of hard to have an experience if you're not living.
It's just the phrase. I don't know. It's
Okay, I'm good with lived experiences, but I would say diverse experiences and perspectives is the way I would put it in.
I like that.
Okay, so we're going to change it to with diverse experiences and perspectives. And we're going to not put in sufficient or sustainable, and we're going to delete unique. Good. Okay, now you have a taste. Now can imagine doing this in a subcommittee for a few days. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say at this point, I really appreciate all the input that we had, and working with staff and our consultant. And I think we've got a good product here. So any other comment, or do we want to have a motion?
I want to move.
Okay, not to a different town, right?
I want to move the motion.
Okay, I'll second it. And can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye, and thank God we don't have to do any more wordsmithing online.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye. So thank you very much. I think this is pretty good, and we didn't say too much about all the principles, but I think that really encapsulates everything we heard and what we're striving to achieve, and in the way we're intending to achieve it. So now, let's see, where am I? We're on to 7.3, which is discussion and direction regarding the city sister city relationship with Snezhniki, Russia. And I think this is all something that's weighing on all of us, our minds, and what's happening over there. As you'll see in the staff report, I did receive a letter from the Ukrainian consulate, and we've been trying to figure out what's the appropriate response. Christine Martin has been looking into it and is, I think, has a staff report for us with potential recommendation as to how to address the request to us. So with that, could we have the staff presentation, please?
Honorable Mayor, Christine Martin, our Assistant City Manager, will give you a brief statement.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This is Christine Martin, Assistant City Manager. Just as the Mayor just explained, on March 2nd, Mayor Warner did receive a letter from the Consul General of Ukraine in San Francisco requesting that Livermore contact sister city Snezhniki, Russia, and ask the Snezhniki people, or ask the Snezhniki government to take actions to oppose the Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine. Staff would like to make a correction to the staff report that was published to note that while the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory has collaborated over the years with the city on the establishment of our sister city relationship as a part of an earlier Nuclear Cities initiative, the laboratory is not a sponsor of the city's sister city relationship with Snezhniki. Since the relationship is between the two cities, the direction this evening should come from the City Council as to what our next steps are. And staff is available for questions and direction this evening.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll open public comment on the item. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us?
Yes, Mayor, there are 3 requests to speak. The first request is from Jean King, followed by Donna Caban and Jackie Coda. Jean King, please unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is Jean King. What is happening in Ukraine is obviously very terrible. And the emotions and I sympathize with the feelings expressed in the letters from the Consulate General of Ukraine. We all want it to stop. From what I hear, independent information and the truth is not getting to the people of Russia. The government of Russia is conducting this war. The citizens of Ukraine, Russia, and the world are and will be suffering the consequences. I offer no solutions, but believe that we need to keep the lines of communication and dialogue open with the citizens of Russia wherever possible. Thank you.
Next speaker is Donna Caban, followed by Jackie Coda. Donna Caban, please unmute yourself. Donna Caban, please unmute yourself.
Our sister city in Russia was established with the intent of building peace, hope, and an exchange of cultural ideas in the spirit of growing strong bonds between the 2 cities. Scientists here and in Livermore work together to find a new element, Livermorium, and the Russians graciously allowed the element to be named after our city. The Russian people have much in the way to offer of art, literature, music, dance, etc. But what is currently happening in Ukraine is an atrocity we cannot ignore. Cities across the state have written letters in the hopes that a request for a ceasefire will resonate and lead to the end of suffering of innocent women and children. We too can do our part. The horrific violence perpetrated on the Ukrainians is not the fault of the citizens of our sister city in Russia, but we cannot remain silent. We can write a letter asking the mayor and the citizens of our sister city to influence change within their government. Even if enough Russian mayors ask for a ceasefire and an end to a war, a change is possible. Russian mothers have done this before, and we have seen protests. The more Russian cities that ask for a ceasefire, the more political pressure coming from within Russia, the better the chances for lasting peace. I do not believe the tone of the letter should be threatening, but I do believe the tone of the letter must convey our intent to respect all countries and cities and build goodwill and even stronger bonds with our sister city so that this type of warfare stops now and never happens again. We cannot continue to share and work together with our sister city while Ukraine is demolished. Residents of Livermore support freedom. I firmly believe that the majority of Livermore residents would support a humanitarian letter from the city council requesting our sister city support a ceasefire and lasting peace. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jackie Coda. Jackie Coda, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Once again, we're falling into the trap of the globalist lie. A couple of years ago, you all fell into the trap of the Russian collusion story with regard to our former. Turned out it was all lies. And here you go again. You're doing the same thing. The people of Russia are not involved in this, and the people of Ukraine are not involved in this. There are 2 governments that are warring over sovereignty. And not only that, but remember, our government lied to us about the biolabs that Putin was actually bombing. So you people need to take a step back and think about what it is that you're considering doing. Putting down a firm foot with a sister city and telling them that they need to tell their government to stop protecting their people from the corrupt Ukrainian government. Yes, that's right, corrupt Ukrainian government, which is the center of the globalists and the center of the deep state. Anytime someone like Klaus Schwab or George Soros or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, corrupt politicians come out and say that they're in support of something, you need to be suspect, because these people have dug in their heels over in Ukraine for years, and they have completely robbed the people of Ukraine of their resources and their money. Zelensky even jailed his political opponents, and he is a puppet of the deep state. So it's time for everyone to take a step back and stop believing the fake news and the propaganda that's being proposed by the Ukrainians, as well as the corrupt Mockingbird media, and actually talk to some people who have family members over there. Like, for instance, Olga, who is the manager over at my storage unit. When I walked in the other day, she was on the phone with her mother in Ukraine. And guess what? Her mother said, she supports Putin and what Putin's doing to try and clear out the corruption in her government. So once again, people, why don't you talk to some Russians and Ukrainians before you continue to kowtow and bend over and grab your ankles to these globalists and all the lies that they continue to spew. It's time for us to reach a hand over to our sister city and say, we are here to support you as people and human beings of this world. And we all hope that this conflict resolves itself peacefully. That's all we need to say. We don't need to get involved or take sides, because you don't know all the facts. All of you don't know the facts, and you're being lied to constantly. So it's time to wake up.
Mayor, there are no more requests to speak.
Okay, close the public comment, bring it back to the council. Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, I support a letter that the Council General has requested. I do find it a little remarkable that somebody would suggest that people in Ukraine are not involved. Thousands of people have died, maybe not thousands, hundreds of people, citizens have died from the bombings. Millions of people are trying to leave the country because of the bombing. So to suggest that the people, the citizens of Ukraine are not involved, I just think it's a sad misstatement. And I would support a letter to our sister city and asking them to do what they think they can to make our point of view and their point of view known to the Russian government. This has got to stop.
Councilmember Monroe.
I agree with Councilmember Carling. This is, my family immigrated, my grandfather immigrated from the Ukraine in the early 20th century. And so this feels fairly personal, what's going on in the Ukraine. But the other, so I'm watching this closely. The connection from city to city, I think, is powerful. Last council meeting, I said that I didn't think that there was a way in which the cities were responsible. I am really pleased to see that this is a way that we can talk city to city, person to person, and perhaps make for a change. And this is what those relationships are for. So I'm in support of doing so.
Okay. Okay, I'll just add to the two previous council members. I believe a letter is appropriate. I think, and I wish we could do much more. Situation is horrific. And, you know, it's really, really saddening. And I've been around a long time and seen a lot of different wars. And it's just, you know, what are you going to do? So I do believe that we should follow through with the request from the Ukrainian consulate I think an appropriate letter has been drafted, and if we have the approval of the council, we'll send it. So I think I'd like to get a Councilmember Kick.
I just had a question on if we're gonna be able to see the letter.
If you, let's see, I'll ask Christine Martin, what's the, have you, I thought we had a preliminary draft, but I think the final will be dependent on, our sentiment tonight, but I think it's going to be pretty much as requested from the Ukrainian consulate. Isn't that the suggestion at this point?
Yes, that is the direction we were going to be headed, and incorporate any further direction that the council has this evening. And we can certainly share that letter. We would certainly share the final copy. We're open to any other direction that you may have.
No, I want to make sure that we do see it as soon as possible because we're getting community questions about it. And I want to be able to say, yep, this is what was sent, rather than sending people in circles. So
I thought you were volunteering to be on a subcommittee to write it.
no, thanks. I agree that this is important, but I will leave that to the highly capable Christine Martin to put that together for us. So thanks for doing that.
I presume, just want to follow up on that the letter could go out tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. Let's see, I've got to get over here and see who's what. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, I mean, I will rely on staff with maybe your final approval on it, Mayor. I mean, what the letter asks us to do is pretty vague, or I mean, it's specific in some respects, but it says we call on you to contact them as soon as possible and require immediate action unless they wish for Livermore to sever its ties with Tsarist Russia, as well as with the rest of the civilized world, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I don't know what that means. I mean, you're saying we're going to write a letter that does what they ask. I'm not entirely sure I understand what they ask. If everyone else does, I support this action and everything you in particular, Mayor Warner, said about the situation, but I'm not sure what we're approving, but I'm also willing to trust that staff with your oversight will
Okay, do you want to
be responsive to the request?
Do you want to make, I'm okay with that. Do you want to make a motion to the effect that approve a letter be sent, drafted by staff with my oversight?
Yes, I would move that we draft a letter. Staff drafts a letter and you, with your approval, we send it out under auspices of the city council.
Okay.
That's a motion.
Okay, Councilmember Monroe.
Yeah, and I had my hand up to make such a motion, so now I'll just second it.
Wow, that's just as good. So, all right, any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, passes unanimously, and I'll work with Christine Martin tomorrow to get this done. And we'll also be informing the consulate what action we've taken. So any other further people contact you on this, you can say that that's what's happening and that we'll have the final version by the end of tomorrow. Councilmember Monroe.
I would like to suggest that when that letter goes out, we post it to the website as well.
Sure. That's good. Okay, we're on now to item 8.0, council committee reports, matters initiated by city manager, city attorney, staff, and council members. So I'll ask, given the order here, do we have city manager, city attorney, staff that would like to report out anything?
Honorable Mayor, this is Mark Roberts, your city manager, and this evening I actually do have several items to report out. So first on our list is that we will be returning to in-person meetings in April, beginning on April 11th for the City Council with a hybrid in-person virtual meeting. So we will be in our new chambers, the John Shirley Chambers, beginning on April 11th. In addition, in April, we will be transitioning all of your advisory bodies back to in-person meetings. And so those will take place over the month of April. After the council is the first to ultimately meet in person on April 11th. One of the additional items that I wanted to report on is that we expect to have the end of our local state of emergency brought back to the council for ratification at your first meeting in April. At that time, we should have concluded all of the necessary actions related to the pandemic financing and the various activities that we are completing. We are still working on some items relating to our flex zones in downtown to give our business owners down there a little more flexibility post-pandemic, but we'll be bringing a change to the ordinance to ultimately implement that permanently, although we'll start out using the powers that were granted during the pandemic to make that happen a little faster and support our downtown businesses. Finally, you'll see on the meeting this evening that I'd like to introduce that we have Tina Olson, our new Administrative Services Director, and I'd like her to welcome her here to the Livermore team this evening. You, of course, know that Tina most recently worked for the City of Pleasanton, but has a long career of public experience. And we're very excited to have her come on board as one of our department heads and join our team. So very excited about that. And finally, wanted to give a quick update. If you've been paying attention down on First Street between L and M, we've seen a lot of activity during the past couple of weeks there, and wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what's coming in the coming weeks, because we had some paving out there over the last few days. So in essentially by the end of April, we're going to have a lot more pavement in there. Our stamped bluestone concrete is going to be poured in a couple of different stages during the month of April. We're going to pour our flex zones in later April, put down foundations for trellises and get the columns for that coming up out of the ground. Ultimately, by the end of May, we'll be finishing up most of the actual paving for the south side of the street. In early June, we'll shift the traffic pattern and prepare the center lane of the roadway for an overlay. And then beginning in late May, we're going to start working on the north side of the street with the north side of the street wrapped up by October. So the process will be continuous. The road will be open continuously. And as you see, we do have that open during the construction there, but we're making good progress once we have cleaned up and worked through the underground issues that caused the project to take a little more time than we originally anticipated. But we're on schedule now, and over the next several months, you'll see a lot of activity. And with that, that concludes my report for this evening, Honorable Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I think now we'll go to the council reports and start with Councilmember Kick.
I've got a couple things. LAVTA, Valley Link, regular meetings. Nothing super different than the usual there. But on Saturday, I was super excited. I went to the Amplify, the Urban Forest event out in Springtown, and 65 trees were planted by over 100 volunteers. My kids and I went, and Councilmember Carling was there as well, and we planted 2 trees, and we walked across the street of the Springtown open space and went to visit the tree we planted last year with Councilmember Monroe. And so it's really cool to see this once golf course transform into a beautiful open space park. So thank you to everybody that came out and participated. It was a very good day. it was a really good way to spend a Saturday. And look out for more events like this. I had conversations with our staff members who said they are looking to add more trees and they will need help. So I'm sure we'll have another event, and that's all I have for report out. I have one question for City Manager Mark Roberts. It's about, I guess it kind of a matters initiated. I just kind of thought of it as we announced that we're going back in person. I think it would be great if we could schedule just a discussion at the beginning of the first, I mean, maybe this is happening, of expectations for communication between council and the public in the chambers. I've seen some other transitions in other cities where maybe they didn't go as smoothly as people are used to being able to be quite angry and rowdy behind a Zoom screen, but that there's a different expectation in person. And so I just want to make sure that as we go back, we're all on the same page of being able to communicate effectively and respectfully all together.
And Councilmember Kick, of course, the City Council does have rules for its in-person meetings, but we haven't been reading those rules at the beginning of every meeting because, of course, we have been virtual. So as we transition back to our in-person meetings, and of course, we will having a hybrid virtual meeting, we will note both the rules for participation in meetings in person, expectations as far as that process, and of course, the way that you can participate in a meeting virtually as well. So the council will actually be running two integrated parallel meetings together, where people will be able to see and hear from both in person and the virtual world. So we will be adding essentially our in-person expectations to that first meeting, and of course to every in-person meeting that we have.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. As you know, I haven't done one yet in person, so this will be new for me too. So thanks for clarifying.
Okay, Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to amplify what Councilmember Kick said about amplifying the urban forest. Last weekend, she pointed out it was a terrific event and a wonderful day. I just want to specifically call out Jeff Schaefer and Joe Prime, who were there from city staff to help make sure that everybody was safe and did things properly. There were at least 4 other city staff there. I unfortunately didn't get their names, but they had Livermore shirts on and they were from Public Works. So I know that there was at least 6 and maybe others that I didn't recognize from city staff. They were there to help folks plant the trees. I worked with 2 moms and 3 Daisy Scouts to plant a tree. Turned out I was the only one with a shovel. They had a trowel. And so it was a great collaboration with my shovel, 3 little Daisy Scouts, or I guess probably kindergarten, something like that. They had a great time, but it was a great day. And as Councilmember Kick pointed out, a lot of families there, 65 trees, a great day for everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. Councilmember Monroe.
I was really excited to hear about the urban forest. I was sorry not to be able to participate. Unfortunately, it took place Saturday morning when I can't participate. So maybe next time it can happen across time I can make it, because I really hope. I'd love to be there with I'll bring a shovel, I'll bring a trowel, I'll bring fertilizer. So I wanted to amplify the Game Changer Awards, which I know that a couple of other council members were at as well. And just this Innovation Tri-Valley puts on 2 awards from each of 5 cities. And it is just really exciting to see us working together as a Tri-Valley, to see the variety of kinds of business and creativity in those businesses, and to see how we as a region are a place where creativity flourishes. So that was very exciting. That was Thursday night. So that was the one thing I wanted to say there. I did want to have a matters initiated of a sort. I know that we have sent on behalf of our Valley Cities, a letter to Alameda County to support a level 2 trauma center at Stanford Healthcare. I did mention this, I think, 1 or 2 council meetings ago. I would like to ask that we reach across to our neighbors in San Joaquin County, because given the distance and also given the commute patterns, this would be something that would affect them as well. So I'd like to see if we could get some reach out to staff there, to other council members going forward. Would that work for people? Could I get nods on that? Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly.
Are you looking for a letter of support from?
I'm looking to reach out to them to ask for them to support this project. Yes, sorry, that wasn't clear, only because it was in my head, not my words. So, okay, and finally, one last thing. It is really an important day that occurs once a year. This is, of course, Pi Day, and I believe that we must recognize it. And I really hope everybody has had their quota of pie for the day, but it is March 14th, 3.14. Happy Pi Day, everyone.
Honorable Mayor and Councilmember Monroe, just to clarify the matters initiated from Councilmember Monroe, that is direction to staff to reach out to staff in Tracy, essentially in San Joaquin, to see if they would be willing to provide a letter of support for the trauma center here in Livermore. Is that correct?
That would be correct. In addition, I would suggest Mountain House and Manteca. I believe those would be the cities most likely to be impacted.
Very good.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, thanks. I have a couple things. Saturday, I also had a great event I was invited to attend. It was the annual Grant and Aid event held at the Hindu Cultural and Community Center in Springtown, which is my first visit there. It was just a really terrific event. It was just a beautiful event, actually. It was just, in addition to the organization handing out grant awards to many of our well-known and wonderful nonprofits, there were dancing, traditional dances and singing, and an awesome lunch, and met some new people, and just really congratulated them on behalf of the whole council. It was an awesome place to visit. Hopefully you all have been there. Again, I'm remiss in never having been there before. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place, and the temple is just gorgeous, and the people are just warm and wonderful. So that was great. Also got a chance to get up very early a week before. It was very early and very cold the day we ran the half marathon, but that was also a great event. It wasn't run last year. It was the 8th event of its type in Livermore, having skipped last year, and it was pretty well attended, maybe not quite as well as other years, but there was over 2,000 runners and walkers, people from as far away as Maine, Texas, Florida, East Coast. Really, I mean, it's considered a pretty elite event. So that was a lot of fun seeing that happen again this year. And LDI, as always, did a really, really nice job organizing that and executing it. It was safe. It was really just an awesome event, and a big festival afterward that all the runners and all the visitors got a chance to really experience the city. The third thing, Livermore downtown is activated. I don't know if anyone has been down last weekend in the evenings. You cannot get into a restaurant without a reservation. I made the mistake with some friends of trying to get into a couple restaurants downtown this weekend without a reservation. Wasn't happening. And even restaurants out near the airport, you needed a reservation. So it's great. Mr. Roberts mentioned the Flex Zone policy update, which we had reviewed. Mayor Warner and I are on the downtown subcommittee, and it was reviewed for us. Remember, we had restaurants that were anxious for as much parking to be turned into outdoor dining during the Flex Zone period, which runs from March through October. The retailers were concerned that as the parking spots got taken up, they lost access, their customers lost access to their storefronts. So I think what they've come up with is a nice compromise. It's been very well reviewed with the businesses. LDI has helped facilitate that. And I think that people are generally, I think, all on board with the compromise, which is more outdoor dining and parking areas than we used to have, but not as much as we had during the peak of the pandemic. So I think we'll hear more about that. Staff is also working on a noise ordinance. There's been some concern about a lot of noise, high decibel noise, especially later in the evenings on the weekends. And I think there's going to try to be a little bit of a structure put around that. The last thing I want to mention is something that I did today, and that was to attend the LPD's continual professional training unit that they had today, which is the entire force in several sessions works through various professional training updates. This one was on force options. And it was just an amazing experience. I spent a couple hours there. It was the patrol groups that were going through some updated training. And there's been a lot of new legislation, which is emphasizing techniques and training for de-escalation of events, scenarios where people are in crisis, trying to prevent it from becoming more escalated. Officers are really having to, be retrained. I mean, a lot of their academy training, even the newer officers, were trained one way, and these new laws, which I think people are generally really appreciative of, require them to really make adjustments on the fly in times of under very difficult circumstances. So I thought the training was great. All the officers were really engaged. Sergeants Gord and Lentman run it, and they do just a terrific job with role-playing exercises, case studies. I just wanted to pass along that to Chief Young, that his team's doing a great job on this. And I think our police force is while always, I think, at top of mind, making sure, the safety of the public is the first priority. Everything I heard was that they're dealing with people who are in crisis, who could prevent a threat to the public, to themselves, to the officers. They're still treating them with a lot of compassion and, really almost, it's tenderness to people who just need to be stabilized. So I was just very, very impressed. I'll stop there. I was impressed with that and wanted to just pass that along to fellow council members, staff, and to Chief Young. So that's it. Thank you for letting me go on a little bit there.
Okay. What I did is in the report file, I just want to do two things. One is some adjustment to our intergovernmental agencies. On the Alameda County Transportation Commission, I'm going to switch from being a delegate to an alternate, and Vice Mayor Bonanno will replace me as the delegate, and then I'll be replacing Vice Mayor Bonanno as the member to the Livermore Dublin Liaison Committee. So make those changes. And then as to matters initiated, wanted to see if there was, if staff could work with LARPD and come back with some kind of plan that discusses what's the future of the barn. I know it's been in limbo for a couple of years, and we can just know what's going on there. That would be helpful.
Very
So
good. Yes,
okay?
that's clear, and I see concurrence. I think we've got everybody agreeing with that. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I'll now adjourn us to a special closed session meeting on March 22nd, 2022 regarding the city manager recruitment, and a regular city council meeting on March 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m., both held virtually using Zoom. So good night all.
Good night.
Thank you.